Let's just go through some of the findings of this report, which is from the Women's Rights Network. So there were a total of 6,539 rapes and sexual assaults in hospitals between January 2019 and October 2022. 1,021 of those offences took place on hospital wards. 265 people were charged, which is just 4.1%. So not all police forces responded to this Freedom of Information request, and the Women's Rights Network point out that these crimes are often underreported, so basically they think the actual number of crimes is probably a lot higher. Joining me now is Heather Binning, who is from the Women's Rights Network themselves. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Heather. Great to have you on the show. Right, should nurses wear body cameras?
Well, if that's a yes and no question right now, I would say no. Having been in hospital myself, taken drugs, well, prescribed drugs, of course, in a very vulnerable position, you can't consent to somebody coming in and filming you in a position. However, I think it's a lot more nuanced than that, and this came out of conversations that had taken place in government at the highest level. I'm talking about what were they going to do following the release of our report and these awful numbers. And it was mentioned. The idea of body cams, I think, was mentioned as a possible solution. I am happy that they're looking at all possible solutions to this problem. I don't want them to discount anything immediately. And it may be that body cams have a role to play, for instance, in a very busy A&E on a Friday or Saturday night. However, I do want proper consideration to be given to these issues, because there is, and body cams can be turned off. They can be used. What are the purpose of them? Is it to protect the nurses? Is it to protect patients? Because we need to understand better what the problem is, why these numbers are so high, and where these incidents are occurring before we can actually come up with the right solution to the problem.
Yeah, no, indeed. I mean, first things first, I was absolutely shocked to see the reports of sexual assault and rape from within our hospitals. I must say that was what really initially stood out to me about this. I was like, good grief. I mean, I was shocked by it. And so there is that. So clearly something needs to be done about that. And I'm just not sure, mainly because of the actual human rights of the patient. As you've said, you're in a vulnerable situation, whether or not body cameras really is the actual answer to it. And I think it might even put some people off potentially getting some treatment. But I mean, if that isn't the solution, then what do you think it is? Because clearly what has to stop is the sexual assaults and rapes in hospitals.
Yes. Well, as I said, the first thing needs to be explored is exactly where these things are occurring, who the alleged perpetrators are, who the victims are. We don't know. We know that 1,000 of these incidents took place on the hospital ward. And so we can, we are presuming, therefore, that is inpatients. We don't know where the others are taking place or the scale of them and who the alleged perpetrators are. So we need to find out that anecdotally, we've had a lot of women coming forward that have been telling us stories about, their own stories about situations and what has happened to them. And there are a number of key issues, I think. And I think one is we need to look at what is happening with mental health patients. We understand that they're in hospital for illness and then maybe stay in hospital longer than they should because the second stage, the next stage can't be found and located for them. So is that part of the problem? I think the biggest problem, if you want to make one change right now, would be to absolutely ensure that there are single-sex accommodation provided in hospitals.